Woo. Hey. Look, we're running a little late today. I slept hard. Look, here's what happened. I didn't play yet, but I downloaded Elden Ring last night because I'm a huge Souls fan. And I was like, you know what? They released the flawless widescreen for it. Now, enter at your own risk if you have a super ultra wide or ultra wide, because you have to set it up to play it offline. Otherwise, they say you're cheating and then they block your game. But I got super ultra wide working on Elden Ring because I saw that they released all the stuff to basically do it. It's basically a memory. The hack has to go through the memory. Anyways, I was up till like 1 a.m. I was working on stuff that I was up till like 1 a.m. I honestly didn't start working on getting it going until like midnight. But it looks really cool. So Elden Ring super ultra wide looks sick. How many times have I died to the entry boss? Twice. I went up there, did it twice, and then was like, oh, I better go. Get some lemonade in. And then today's stream is going to be a little short. A little short because I'm going to go to lunch with my son, which is at 10:45 because he's in kindergarten. Funny story. I discovered last week that when we pack him lunch, which is most of the time because I'm not a fan of the school lunches. I talked to my daughter's doctor when we were up there, and she said that whatever they've been doing with the school lunches has been causing constipation in the older kids and diarrhea in the younger kids. Now that's in a different town. My son goes to a different school district, so I haven't checked out the school district here. But anyways, not a fan of school lunches. I do get that, like, it's good to participate in them because they get more funding, and then the people that can't afford to make lunches for their kids, blah, blah, blah. Well, my son's been double dipping. So if I give him lunch, he goes up and he gets the school lunch too. So he's been hammering down all the lunches, school lunches and everything. So it's pretty funny. I do think it is the least healthy food that he's ever eaten in his life is the school lunches, because you can get like mini corn dogs and pizza and stuff. And we'll do pizza here, here and there, and we'll do donuts here and there. But for the most part, I put a lot of stuff in the smoker. Brisket, turkey, that sort of stuff. All right, today's a fun day. Always is a fun day, right? We got Biden to sign crypto orders as firms face sanctions pressure. More sanctions news. We have Bitcoin mining startup Blockmetrix raising $43 million in Series B round. We have Intel Alchemist release date leaks. And then we have new launches of miners from Team Red Miner and Team Black Miner. So we're going to get into all of that after a word from today's sponsor, which I do have to modify here real quick. Today's sponsor is myself. Bam, ignore this one, but do that one too. You'll get access to our privately hosted Rocket Chat. Select Today's sponsor is Crypto.com. Crypto.com is my go-to centralized exchange for liquidating my crypto assets. With their Crypto.com Visa debit card, I can load up my mined Ethereum to pay for power and other operating costs quickly while earning up to 8% cash back. In addition to the Visa debit card, there are additional fiat options including wire transfers to easily receive your profits. Crypto.com also offers additional services, including trading and even staking, to earn additional revenue on your investments. Join 10 million plus users buying and selling 100 plus cryptocurrencies at true cost by using my affiliate link in the description for a $25 funding bonus. Or enter referral code SOAT at sign up for the same bonus. Remember, cryptocurrency investment comes with significant risks, so do your own research. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It's the Crypto Mining Show, your one-stop shop for all cryptocurrency news from the perspective of a cryptocurrency miner, meaning we do focus on mining news, but we definitely take a look at the rest of the markets. We're here for the fundamentals. We started because we could make money with our graphics cards, and we want to support a decentralized network at the end of the day. Today, we are going to hop straight into Team Red Miner because we've already run the ad. And I obviously did not get everything set up as good as I normally have it, so apologies for the transition. We have version 0.9.4.1 released 4 hours ago of Team Red Miner. Small fixes and added support for tool TH5355 FPGAs. GPU fixed ETH plus TON issue that could lead to higher ETH shares stale rate, and primarily for large GPUs, the 6800 and 6900 XT with aggressive tuning. GPU internal split of binaries helping some Vegas and Navis with crash issues on ET hash from 0.9.2 and forward. FPGA added initial support for TUL, TH53, and TH55. Now, FPGAs are something I really haven't gotten into, frankly, because I feel like I would need to code to get into that a lot better, essentially. And I've been a little standoffish because I don't want to spend all the money and then sit there having to, bribe people to help me figure it out. All right, let's get into Team Black Miner version 1.5a 23 hours ago. Improved the GPU timeout check code in preventing timeouts and exit if too many rejected shares. So there you go. Not so much the nightly Team Black Miner or Team Nightly Miner, but we're in get it over with. Still not huge changes on either one of those. Unfortunately, no great news on light hash rate 100% unlocks either, but we do have GPU news coming from WCCF Tech. First, Intel Arc Alchemist gaming graphics card expected to launch between May and June. Intel Arc Alchemist graphics card for the desktop PC segment are now expected to launch next quarter around May to June. The latest information comes from Igor Walasek from Igor's lab, who has got new details on the launch schedule of the upcoming gaming lineup. As per him, the Intel Arc Alchemist graphics cards will indeed end up launching in Q2 2022, as the Blue Team confirmed, but it looks the lineup would first include high-end variants and will eventually move to the mainstream segment. It is also stated that the QS samples are expected to tape out in 1 to 2 weeks, which means that Intel will have at least 2 months of production capacity for the gaming segment. Quote, several different sources have told me of another Intel card postponement, at least as far as Q1 to 3. The 3 performance models are concerned. There are currently consistent rumors that the first models will be released between May 2nd and June 1st. Furthermore, the tape out of the QS qualified sample should not take place for 1 to 2 weeks. It looks like Igor is referring to the SoC1 when he talks about QS tape out, since the Mobility Arc SoC2 is already confirmed for launch this quarter. The SoC2 is the smallest of the 2 chips, so the full variant, which is expected to ship on desktops, first comes a little later, and hence the Q2 launch instead of Q1. Slow down on writing these. There's a lot of crazy mistakes here, making it hard to read. Oh, we have already detailed the core architecture, specifications, and features of the Arc Alchemist lineup in our detailed roundup over here. As we know, the Intel Arc Alchemist lineup will feature two primary DG2 GPU SKUs, the big SoC1 and the small SoC2. The SoC1 will feature DG2 512 configuration and will be utilized by the Arc A700 and Arc A500 series graphics card solutions, while the SoC2 config that will utilize the DG2 128 SKU will be utilized by the Arc A300 series. At least 3 SKUs are expected to launch within the Intel Alchemist discrete desktop graphics card lineup for gaming PCs. If all goes according to plan, Intel hopes to ship at least 1 million GPUs based on its Arc design each year. That's a crazy amount hitting the market for a first-time launch. Hopefully they'll be good. Let's take a look at this. Some of the excitement surrounding these for me is going to be obviously the power consumption that we've been talking about for a while. So at the top end here, the XE G512, we're looking at 256-bit memory bus with memory speed unknown yet. Hopefully we get that 18 gigabits per second. I would assume so, because that's what pretty much all of that is moving to, but maybe we get the 16, and that is sub 225 watts, which actually beats out, potentially for mining at this point, would beat out both NVIDIA and AMD on power consumption, presumably, to hash rate ratio. And it gets better as you go down the line. You got 192-bit bus with a power usage between 150 and 200 watts on the desktop. And then you have a 128-bit bus between 60 and 80 watts. And then you got a 96-bit bus at around 75 watts. So power consumption is looking really, really good with the amount of available memory speed or memory bandwidth or potential memory bandwidth, right? So we could see not only a huge supply, but pretty reasonably priced GPUs to start building mining rigs with, I think, at this point. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Are you excited about the Alchemist from a mining perspective? I am. I always like new hardware to test. That being said, Ada Lovelace is looking like a power-hungry monger, even though there is something to say for the amount of hash rate you're going to potentially get out of like a 4090 that'll just be fun to test out. But at 600 watts, it's a little rough, you know. Bitcoin mining is not slowing down either. Failed segue. And basically what we have here is Bitcoin mining startup Blockmetrix raises $43 million in Series B round. Ooh, us home miners are going to have a hard time competing, guys. Trying to catch up on the ASIC side of things is extremely difficult. Even with Intel coming onto the market, it looks like Intel is basically selling directly to mining companies who are then taking those boards and having another manufacturing company like the third party build them out specifically for the, the mining farms. I'm really trying to decide how I want to approach it. It's just really hard and kind of depressing when you see a lot of this as a home miner or even just a small time miner. Because I know, like, technically I'm pretty much home miner level, just moved out into a warehouse, but definitely not at this level. So Bitcoin mining startup Blockmetrix raises $43 million in Series B round. The company has previously raised $7 million that went into deploying more than 1,000 mining rigs. Dallas-based Bitcoin mining startup Blockmetrix announced a $43 million Series B funding round, bringing a total funding to $50 million since June of 2021. The new monies will allow Blockmetrix to secure more than 5,000 mining rigs to be added to 1,000 miners put to work with last year's $7 million Series A. This latest round was oversubscribed, said the company, and included investors from the US, Australia, and several Asian countries. Blockmetrix plans to grow rapidly by using the maximum amount of available capital and debt to buy mining rigs, while controlling power costs through various joint ventures, CEO and co-founder Nevin Bannister told CoinDesk. Through joint ventures, we will obtain part ownership of a co-location facility to ensure low power rates in place to house our Bitcoin miners, he said. The company, JV Partners, will be responsible for the development and operation of the co-location facility, which will help channel the majority of the funding directly towards increasing hash rates rather than building infrastructure, Bannister explained. So they're basically, assigning out the infrastructure portion of it so that they can just focus on, I assume here at this point, just plopping down miners. Bannister is a professional entrepreneur, having previously founded startups that have sold for a combined value of over $800 million, according to the Blockmetrix website. The funding comes at a time when cryptocurrency and broader markets have pulled back from their peaks last year, dampening some of the euphoria among investors. Quote, our investors were attracted to our management's proven ability to operate and scale at a high level, end quote, said Bannister. Our ability to raise a significant amount of funding during market turmoil and geopolitical challenges makes us distinct from other competitors, he added. Noting the company's investors consisted mostly of high net worth individuals, many of whom have institutional ties and experience. And we've talked about this. Institutional money, it's good to a certain extent because it means that a less volatile market. It means that maybe we break out of things like the traditional Bitcoin super cycle, but it's also bad from the perspective of the mining or the miners, right? Essentially because as these companies gather up all the resources, they have funds and access to funds that just the regular person does not have access to. And it really hurts if we look at large companies within the GPU mining segment like Hut 8, where, the fact of the matter is once ETH moves to proof of stake, it could be very good for small time miners because large mining companies aren't as attracted to GPU mining. I think there's a positive there, but we still have to worry about all those miners that are on the network and where they're going to go to. We've talked about the downside of a lot of the ASICs moving over, the Ethereum ASICs moving over to Ethereum Classic, but we still on the GPU side have GPU mineable only coins like Flux and Ravencoin, etc. And there was a little bit of hope, right, that with the move to proof of stake for Ethereum, a lot of these large GPU mining facilities would just shut off. And then we would distribute those networks and start building those networks back up from the ground. You have to remember that there's this weird starting foundation level of Ethereum that is like the home miner, the smaller time miners that helped build Ethereum up from the ground up. And the reason that works so well is because you have a whole bunch of individuals participating within the network, not a couple of large institutional investors that are pretty much powering the entire network. And that's just my 2 cents as far as that goes. Another plus is Blockmetrix US focus, Texas in particular. Quote, experts have declared Texas to be the next Bitcoin mining capital, end quote, and they are going to go head to head once again with the federal government. It seems like at this point, and we'll be talking about that here in a second, but it's interesting that you kind of have these states that are essentially kind of opposed to whatever the federal regulations are surrounding a lot of these. A weird thing, though, is Texas still doesn't have Binance.us. I'm in Texas, so there's a lot of oddities surrounding this entire market right now. I just find it kind of curious that we're going to have the importance of, so the US, to give you guys an idea, basically was kind of founded on breaking down, they call them checks and balances to a certain extent, and then you have your Bill of Rights, and breaking down, essentially what I'm getting to is breaking down the government structure to where the federal government's supposed to have less power than the state governments, which has less power than city governments. Everything kind of does their own portion to regulate their own specific area. And this is basically was a way to essentially prevent tyranny, that sort of thing. And when it comes to things like cryptocurrency policies and so on, what we're seeing, unfortunately, is a really big pushback from the federal government. And then, of course, the states that are benefiting from cryptocurrency. And it's going to be states that, for a large part, don't rely on the rest of the union for things like power. I know a lot of people are like down on Texas because of their power grid and the infamous issues they had last year. But you have to keep in mind that part of what that does is kind of set it up to be a sovereign state. If you are dependent on these kind of federal resources or other states' resources, then you're more dependent on them. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, I guess is my point, because it's clear at this point that Texas in general is the number one place to go for mining cryptocurrency. I mean, there are so many different opportunities, from solar to wind to flare gas to just the incentives that the Texas government gives you and the power companies give you as a Bitcoin miner to actually build here and contribute back to the power grid when needed. There were miners on this last winter storm for the year 2022, which wasn't near as bad as 2021, but they actually made more money shutting off their miners and selling that power essentially back to the grid to keep it stable. So there's a ton of different incentives going on surrounding mining within Texas. And if you have the federal government that's going to come in and be super overbearing on it, it's going to be interesting to see how Texas responds to that, right? And that's just kind of how I'm starting to see it, especially when it starts getting called like the Texas or the Bitcoin mining capital, right? Local legislation encourages continued investment, in digital asset mining operations in the state with the hopes of revitalizing economic growth and bringing jobs to the area. Blockmetrix is currently negotiating a JV deal that will secure a 100 megawatt co-location facility in Texas with expansion potential to 200 megawatts, Bannister told CoinDesk. So essentially what we have is another huge miner, a miner that was smaller that's now blowing up to basically it's going to be a huge miner within North Texas. There's a ton of them up there now at this point. It's just getting absolutely insane as far as all the options, the amount of people that are investing into it. There's smaller companies, like I talked to ProDirect Mining, of course, like you guys saw, they're standing up these facilities, starting to try to get into it. But even at their level, it's like, whoa, like that's small compared to, companies like this and so on. So, it's getting really, really difficult. There's a lot of points. I know I'm kind of rambling a lot. I'm talking about the whole GPU mineable portion. I'm talking about institutional investing. If you don't follow, I understand. I'm going to try to be as articulate as possible and really build out a couple videos surrounding everything that's going on here, because it can get quite confusing, especially when we get into this. I don't even understand what's going to happen here. We're going to talk about Biden to sign crypto order as firms face sanctions pressure. And we've talked about sanctions before and whether or not sanctions should be within cryptocurrency. And at the end of the day, if we're following the fundamentals of Bitcoin, which is the one that we really care about as far as from a principled standpoint, and moving that and influencing the rest of the crypto market to follow suit, what we do know is that you are supposed to value that financial autonomy, which is essentially the freedom to from governments, the freedom from banks, and so on, so that you can transact peer-to-peer at an individual level. And the problem with sanctions is that what they really aim to do, at face value, what the governments want to tell you they do is essentially impact other governments in a negative economic manner so that they will basically behave properly, right? Case in point would be imposing sanctions on the Russians to essentially influence them to pull out of Ukraine. That's the idea. That's what sanctions are supposed to do. Unfortunately, what they end up doing in a lot of cases, right, is impact the individuals of countries regardless of who they agree with and who they don't agree with and so on. And the problem is you can't police individuals like that. It doesn't work. So you end up hurting a bunch of people with sanctions and so on. And cryptocurrency does kind of offer that sort of light at the end of the tunnel for individuals like me being able to transact with someone maybe in Russia, regardless of what is going on between our governments and how they're fighting each other, right? Or a Ukrainian transacting with a Russian for whatever needs they may have to fulfill, right? Food, water, etc. Because maybe they don't agree with their governments, right? But they still need to take care of their families. This is kind of an interesting play that you can utilize on an individual level, or should be able to utilize on an individual level without the influence of a government or a bank. Unfortunately, of course, as we've seen, voluntarily, we already have, especially within the Ethereum mining space, or the Ethereum space period, is basically cryptocurrency firms going ahead and participating within the sanctions voluntarily. We have Flexpool, who has stopped serving Russia. We have Ethermine, who has stopped serving Russia, along with other countries as well, like Venezuela and so on. We have OpenSea shutting this off. And we have the back-end processing, payment processing portion of MetaMask participating in this as well. Like I said, the interesting part here that you should keep in mind is voluntary versus involuntary, and we'll kind of talk about that here. A lot of what is being voluntarily done within the crypto space is specifically being done within Ethereum. And this poses a significant risk to the validity of Ethereum, but we've already talked about this. We've seen this coming for a long time, right? Oh, they get hacked. Code is law. Now code is not law. You know what I mean? Oh, we think, the price isn't doing as well. Let's just start burning tokens. Let's change the consensus mechanism. Let's change the monetary policy. Let's do whatever we want. And at this point, obviously, they are moving in that direction. Now, clearly, I'm not saying the pools are working with the devs, but there's this influence within that Ethereum space. There's basically a way of thinking that is old world, that is not decentralized, that moves towards centralization. And so from that perspective, Ethereum, in my opinion, goes against the fundamentals of cryptocurrency. And it's very disappointing because I really like GPU mining, and that was really kind of where it started, was with Ethereum. So this gets very difficult to start navigating. But Biden to sign crypto order as firms face sanctions pressure. Government-wide plan poised to be announced this week. National security regulation to be focused on the executive order. President Joe Biden is set to sign an executive order this week that will outline the U.S. government's strategy for cryptocurrencies, according to people familiar with the administration's plan. The order will direct federal agencies to examine potential regulatory changes, as well as the national security and economic impact of digital assets, said the people who asked not to be named discussing the deliberations. The White House's approach to crypto has attracted fresh attention in recent weeks after U.S. and its allies levied sanctions on Russia, prompting concerns that organizations and individuals could use crypto to evade the restrictions. The White House declined to comment. And they can. I mean, that is a fact. You can use cryptocurrency to get around sanctions, at least some cryptocurrencies, the ones that adhere to the fundamentals. That's case in point. We already understand that. The question would be, Should the federal government interfere with that, or should they not? And then we have to decide on, well, why are we even worried about cryptocurrency in the first place? Are we worried about cryptocurrency to make money and just treat it as a tech stock? Okay, go buy Ethereum. Or are we worried about basically changing the way money functions, and as a society, we interact with it? Because the point from the fundamental perspective is to completely change the way that we interact with money, and basically pulling that ability out of the hands of the governments and the banks. The Biden administration is under pressure to play more of a coordinating role in Washington's approach to the asset class, as industry executives bemoan what they say is a lack of clarity on rules. The executive order, which has been in the works since last year, will require federal agencies across the government to report later this year what they're doing regarding digital tokens. Bloomberg News has reported the plan is expected to begin carving out roles for agencies across the government, from the State Department to the Commerce Department. Here's where we're about to get into the nitty-gritty. And I want you to look at this. I want you to understand the perspective I'm looking at this specific portion from. This next paragraph. Let me get a drink here. What we are looking at and what will happen, I think, just no matter what, is you are going to see a fight between centralization and decentralization. And all of the countries will want to essentially participate. And I should say this, all of the economically well-off countries, first world countries, will want to push centralization over decentralization. This goes across not only cryptocurrency, but across media as well, as we've seen. There is a huge play to control not only the money, but the narrative, but everything outside of that. There is a consolidation of farmland being driven, where basically we have 60% owned by the same person. We could get into that. We have basically a huge campaign for targeting essentially misinformation and disinformation along the lines of whatever ideological basis you are on, right? You hear the right say it, you hear the left say it. What happens when you start trying to label stuff like that too is that you end up at the end of the day having an excuse to say, well, we're going to regulate it, right? We're going to regulate the press, which I want you to remember the First Amendment and say you can't do that. Okay, at least in the United States, we're not supposed to. Other countries, they can potentially do that. But these are the battles that are going to be taking place. In case in point, the White House's directive is also expected to address the possibility of a U.S.-issued central bank digital currency. Do not get cryptocurrency confused with CBDCs. Do not get them confused. This is the other problem. Do not get Bitcoin and Ethereum confused. All right. This is very important to understand. A CBDC is extremely dangerous. It is the opposite direction of cryptocurrency. It is the opposite direction of where it should go. Why is that? Well, a CBDC, as said, central is in the very first word. They're telling us what they're doing. Okay. We heard not that long ago in the talks in the UK about central bank digital currencies, they specifically said the great thing about it is that it's programmable, and we can determine either at the workplace level or the government level what you are allowed to buy and not allowed to buy based on your income level, based on your participation within society, and so on. This is the clear goal of central bank digital currencies. So it's coming to the US too. We got to fight tooth and nail for against centralization, for decentralization, and it's going to play out within the cryptocurrency market. That is what it's going. That is where the battleground is being set right now. How are they setting that? What's the spark to ignite this battle? It's sanctions. Okay? So regardless of your opinion on the specifically the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, that's a moot point, because what's really happening here is utilizing sanctions to ignite a battle between centralization and decentralization within cryptocurrency. That's where the fight's going to be, okay? Though it'll likely hold off on taking a firm position because the Federal Reserve is still studying the issue. The central bank, in a paper released in January, said a US CBDC could help preserve the dollar's dominance as other countries like China embrace the technology. Meanwhile, the crypto industry is facing intense scrutiny from lawmakers, including Senator Elizabeth Warren and Senate Banking Committee Chairman Sherrod Brown. Yeah, they don't like other people having the option to not be affected by their decision to print money. See, because this is how it happens. They print a ton of money and then they get to decide who it goes to. And who does it always go to? The top 1%. That's who it always goes to. So they aren't as affected by the inflation as the regular Joe trying to go and buy some damn gas. Over concerns the digital asset can be used to bypass sanctions. However, some analysts and officials have questioned how effective a workaround crypto could be given the limited size of the market. Him Dawes, acting director of Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, addressed the issue on Monday. Quote, although we have not seen widespread evasion of our sanctions using methods such as cryptocurrency, prompt reporting of suspicious activity contributes to our national security and our efforts to support Ukraine and its people, he said in a news release. And this is where the reporting happens. This is where they get into the tattletale thing, right? Oh, do you know somebody that's participating in cryptocurrency? Why don't you just tell us who they are? Why don't you just tell us who they are? We'll go get them. We'll take care of this. Don't worry. We'll protect you. It's a disaster, guys. It's a disaster. Let's get into mining profitability for the week. We'll kind of wrap this back around. Just in closing on that, pay close attention, because what we're doing is we're setting up a battleground between centralization and decentralization. And if you're really in cryptocurrency for the fundamentals, for the principles that were set early on, then you need to be paying attention to this. And we need to be voting in the people that are going to fight for decentralization, for cryptocurrencies as they sit, that are going to fight against central bank digital currencies. These are the types of people that we need to get voted in. And for me personally, that I don't care what side of the political aisle they're on. I'm going in and I'm looking at what their policy surrounding Bitcoin is, right? That's what we're at. In Texas, Greg Abbott's pretty bullish on it. I think there was Harrison was a little bit better when we discussed that before. They're both Republican, of course. Beto's not for it. So, you can tell how I voted. I was going on that line. There's other things I disagree with, but from the perspective of what is more important to me as an individual, cryptocurrency and adhering to the fundamentals is more important to me than everything else at this point. Clearly, because this is what I do, right? So that's the way I'm going to vote along those lines. Okay. Then, we get up into the federal government level. There's not a lot of people that at the federal government level right now that support decentralization. There's very few. I know we talked about Ted Cruz And I've never been a fan of Ted Cruz, but he's one that has been vocal about cryptocurrency in general, and positive about it. So just keep that in mind. Mining profitability is, well, we don't know. I moved back to Crazy Pool for Ethereum. We've been on it since yesterday around noon. We have an unpaid balance of 0.05. Now, we did get a payout yesterday of 0.03 because we are utilizing the, let me double check and make sure. I don't think it shows the IP. Yeah, it doesn't. So, and I'll just kind of do this. There we go. So, essentially in the settings here, you have Binance Smart Chain. Both Coinbase and Crypto.com, I've confirmed at this point through my own account, will pay out. Your gas price is going to be 0. This is on Crazy Pool. When it gets paid out on the Binance Smart Chain to an Ethereum address that's at a centralized exchange, one of these options, it will show up as Ethereum. The good thing about that is it trades like Ethereum within the centralized exchange. And you're not paying the Ethereum layer 1 fees. It's a good option, just so you guys know. I am going to be covering mining pools and all the different payout options. I'm working on it. There are a ton of mining pools to go through. And as I work through that, I'm trying to work on a kind of a pros con list of all the pools that are available. And obviously like some of the profitability that will go into there. But I want to make you guys aware. Just, you can turn this on and you're good to go. If you're mining to MetaMask, you can just mine to your MetaMask wallet and then, connect the RPC to your MetaMask and you'll see it as tokens. Downside there, of course, is going to be the fact that at that point, you would have to, technically, if you wanted layer 1 ETH, you would have to swap it and you would pay the fees to swap or bridge from Binance Smart Chain to Ethereum. And then more than likely you would have to pay to swap WETH on layer 1 Ethereum to ETH for the actual coin. It can get a little confusing, but if you're just wanting to go to a centralized exchange and get your ETH and swap it out for something else, this is an option as far as this goes. So essentially for the day yesterday, let's see, on the 7th, we did 0.01. That's essentially because we didn't start mining till noon. And then as you can see here, so far for today, it's showing we did 0.07 so far. And we still have time left today. So we might have a really good day today because that's $186 and it's only 10:32. So we're not even halfway through. So we might have a really, really, really good day, today on Crazy Pool, because we're not even halfway through and that's what it's showing. So, could be super positive there as far as mining profitability for the day. Then I am on Miner Pool with 1 rig on Flux. We did switch it off of the solo pool. So we have, reporting on the pool, we have 162 solutions a second. That seems about right. There's 7 1063 gigs. They're getting anywhere from 22 to 24 solutions a second with a plus 150 megahertz overclock on the core and a 900 megahertz locked memory clock. And they all seem to be functioning right at that level. So I'm pretty happy with that. What that's coming out to essentially is, let's see, it says we have unpaid of 174. I don't know this one as well. Okay, 24 hours. That's going to be 2.42 flux a day. So around $2 a day, give or take, for profitability on that. And then, unfortunately, I got to go. So let's do mining pool profits for the day. Last 90 days, mining pool hub in first, flex pool in second, crazy pool in third. Last 60 days, mining pool hub in first, flex pool in second, crazy pool in third. Last 30 days, ZET in first, mining pool hub in second, flex pool in third. Last 21 days, ZET in first, mining pool hub in second, flex pool in third. Last 14 days, ZET in first, mining pool hub in second, crazy pool in third. Last 7 days, ZET in first, mining pool hub in second, crazy pool in third. Last 3 days, ZET in first, mining pool hub in second, flex pool in third. And for the last 1 day, ZET in first, mining pool hub in second, and Ethermine in third. And that's going to have to wrap it up for me today. If you have a couple questions, hit me up real quick. And then what I might do at this point is come back afterwards. Let me know if this sounds good to you guys. And I'll throw a poll out either on YouTube or something like that. Maybe I can come back and we can do like just an hour of Q&A. But right now, I got to get going. I'm going to go do lunch. Thanks for watching. Hit the like, subscribe, notification bell down below. And I will see you next Tuesday.